All right. Hey, guys. Welcome to the end. This is not the Endless Endeavor podcast. This is Enlightened Neanderthals, sponsored by Training Northwest. I am the owner of Training Northwest, located in Granite Falls, Washington, and we are currently running some firearms classes and recently announced our first multi-day class called Rifleman Camp 2023. So you guys can check that out on our website, trainingnorthwestllc.com. And today's episode is our book review, book report of With the Old Breed on Peleliu and Okinawa by Eugene Sledge. And this was Mike Kozak's book recommendation. It was outstanding. I really enjoyed it. It's grisly and gritty. And I don't know, Mike, you have anything you want to say about it?
Read it and see why your grandpa is a better person than you are.
100%.
Yeah.
All right. And I think that's all you need to know. Enjoy the episode. Before we get into the book, Mike.
Yes.
Did you say you have an owl story too?
Secondhand owl story.
I wanted to ask you about it, but then I thought I'd wait till we were recording.
Yeah. Go ahead. Let's hear your owl story.
Oh, so I hit an owl going 70 miles an hour on I-5, and the guys I was carpooling with jumped awake and were like, "What was that?" And said, "Oh man, we hit an owl." They said, "Do you want to pull over and check?" And I said, "No, we were going 70. He's done for." And they're like, "No, I mean check your radiator." I said, "Nah, we'll see the temperature climbing if the radiator's damaged." And so we kept going another 15 miles to our exit. As we were getting off, one of them asked if I'd pull into the little AM/PM to get coffee. And as he gets out, he kind of jumps back and goes, "Holy shit, it's still alive." And I see this brown wing flapping over the hood of my truck. Holy crap, man. So we jump out, and this owl had hit my license plate, which had nothing behind it. So the license plate collapsed in and sort of caught him, and he was stuck in that hole, right behind, or the hole in the bumper right behind the license plate. And so he's looking at us like he's pissed, and he's wedged in there pretty tight. And so fortunately we were, I don't know, a quarter-mile walk from the job site. So we went and got an impact driver and 24 inches worth of mag tips to extend that thing so we wouldn't have to get close to him. We backed out the license plate bolts. And we called the the county animal control officer, and she showed up with a dog kennel and a towel. So we backed out the license plate bolts, threw a towel over the thing, and they took him to the humane center or whatever. And they called me a week later and said the owl, they're like, "Yeah, he's going to lose one of his, one of his toes was just severed whenever he got hit by the license plate. And he has a dislocated wing, and he's going to stay here for 3 months, and we'll re-release him."
Rehabilitation center.
Yeah, dude, I was
yeah.
70 miles an hour, man.
Those things tucked right in there.
Yeah.
All those feathers, though, they are like an airbag. It's not like you punch an owl and immediately hits that owl. You got to get through 6 inches of feather.
Yeah.
That's slowing down the impact. You know what I mean?
But still, he hit that license plate dead on. Anywhere else on that bumper, he'd probably be
Toast.
yeah.
That's fucking wild.
Yeah, so I got an owl story, I guess, then. So this isn't... this is how this podcast is turning, right? This isn't my owl story, per se. This is around the campfire owl story. So I can't confirm or deny this is true, but a friend of mine, he was hunting with another guy, and they were deep somewhere in the woods, and they were turkey hunting. And sometimes you get in places where the further you go out, it seems like not everyone applies by the rules. And so they were turkey hunting, and they were turkey hunting at night, and they were driving, and my buddy was passenger in a car, and the guy's driving, and all of a sudden he goes, "Oh my God, there it is." And he slams on the brake, and my friend says he sees the guy get out, and he's looking through the windshield, and he sees him in the headlights, and he aims straight up with the shotgun and pulls the trigger. Boom. Next thing you know, it wasn't a turkey. An owl fell onto the hood of the car, and he thought it was a turkey. So that's my secondhand owl story.
Right.
Yeah, I don't have any owl stories.
All right.
Yeah.
Should we skip straight to the book then? So we read, we read With the Old Breed on Peleliu and Okinawa by E.B. Sledge, and I guess we should probably say I think it's published by Ballantine Books. But Mike, this was your recommendation. This one's actually been on my to-do list for a long time. It's just
Yeah, same.
okay. Well, so
Yeah.
oh man, I'll let you take it away from here.
Let's see how the way I came across it was, I forget, it was an interview or a podcast or something years and years ago. And it was someone that was military, not like of that time, but someone that's currently in the military, and they're just talking about understanding your military history and stuff. And the guy just brought up how an example of just brutality and how war can really drive people. And, you know, that makes tough men. And the example he was given was in Peleliu. Sledge recalls an example of stripping, not field stripping, but harvesting, what do you call it? Goods, rewards, extracting
Gold teeth.
Yeah, pulling stuff like that. And that there was a dead Japanese, and a soldier went to grab him and go extract his teeth. And the guy wasn't really completely dead. And the soldier was just so brutalized by war, he didn't care. He got out his K-bar, and as the guy's wiggling, he just started extracting. And the guy moved, so he slashed open his mouth even wider so he had easier access to his mouth. And, yeah, I mean, it's a gruesome story. Luckily, in Sledge's account, that the guy, someone else came up and shot that guy in the head, that Japanese. But I was just like, what in the fuck are these people doing? What is this? This is insane. And so I just found what that was from. That was from this book, and I just wanted to read the book. And then reading this book especially just sent off a interest in knowing the story of more Pacific soldiers in World War II. I mean, we all kind of know Hitler. I mean, everyone knows Hitler, but no one knows about, you know, the imperial kings of Japan, you know, and that the military and the king were two different units, and just how Japan rose and why they were so vicious as a people, who they were as a culture, how they were able to get into power. And yeah, this book to me was just a springboard, a launching point into getting more involved with the Pacific War. And I mean, you can read books about stats and give you information, but I think things that really hook you in are emotional stories. And this story of this soldier and in this war and what he went through, and him as a character, he was a really good guy. I mean, he, by all accounts, he seems to be like a sweet, honest, nice human being. Yeah. And what war can do to anyone, no matter how good you think you are or altruistic, that the most extreme settings, circumstances, the things that you're inflicted on right now, how that can change you as a person. And this book to me just lit off everything in that, and wanting to know more about why we were there, how we were there, what was involved with it, and what these soldiers went through.
How the fuck am I supposed to follow that?
Yeah. Fuck. Well, there was that one point in there, because, you know, how you're saying they turned kind of brutalistic or whatever, if that's even a word. But Sledge goes in and ends up like going to extract a tooth from a dead soldier.
Yeah.
And there was that doctor that was like, hey,
Doc
no.
Caswell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he stops him and he tells him, no, germs. You know, you don't want to get those Japanese germs on you or whatever. And he was like, oh, and in the time it stopped him, but the doctor was like trying to.
Yeah, I think he reflects on it later and says,
yes,
in reality, he wasn't worried about the germs. You know, he realized that
saving his humanity.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Who he was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Through the whole journey of like wanting to, because from the beginning of the book he goes through and his parents, it's like there was no, back in the day it seemed like it was like, you're gonna join the military. Like I feel like that was kind of like a normal thing as opposed to now. Like all the young men, it seemed like, oh, we're joining the military. It's World War, you know.
Oh, I thought you meant okay. Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. People were committing suicide because they couldn't get in. It's sort of that, just like the beginning of the movie Captain America, where he's despondent because the military wouldn't accept him.
Yeah.
Yeah. So within that, like, you know, as that was happening, he was going to do the officer school. And then they all started flunking out. You know, they're like, fuck this. We got to go.
Yeah.
We got to join this war. You know, we're not here to do college. So,
well, in Sledge in particular, his friends, and I believe it was his brother, was in the military already, and they were serving. And I think, yeah, that's a great point. You want to, like, it's not hot to join the military now. I mean, and I get that with what I think,
But,
you know.
but think in 2002.
Yeah,
2002,
exactly.
It was the same.
It was
same
go
effect.
for it. Yeah, exactly. We were just attacked. So I think, yeah, that weighs heavily on, you look at this character and what people did in that time period, what they felt was morally right and they had to do was join this fight.
yeah.
And it was much more. I mean, you look at World War II. I mean, look at Hitler's we didn't know they were putting people in concentration camps until we liberated, you know, and went over there. But I mean, I think we had some idea of what like taking over Poland mattered in World War II and what consequences that would have. And you know, and the same with the Japanese. You look at what they did through all Euro-Pacific, Philippines. I mean, there are reasons to fight.
It's a weird coincidence that both the Japanese and the Germans tried to take over the world at the exact same time. You know what I mean? Like by all accounts, there was no coordination between them, but just the fact that both countries like rose to like such extreme levels of power, and then literally within 2 years of each other made their play for world dominance is. How often do two powers rise like that and then make their big offensive push at the same moment?
Yeah. I would say that the industrial, like steam-powered engine, mechanic stuff, I mean, it kind of set the whole world on a playing field. And if you look at...
It was like a race to World War II almost.
Like us in Russia going to space. It's like, oh, I mean, Russia was almost there. It could have been a 2-year thing where look at these two countries just miraculously both landed on the moon within a couple of years of each other.
Did they?
I think Japan...
I was just gonna say, hang on. I'm calling Tyler right now. Well, hang on. So I do, all right, tinfoil hat time. NASA does say that they've lost the technology. Like they can't land on the moon today because they lost the technology. Isn't that kind of suspicious?
It is suspicious, but I can get it in a certain way as to like if you went to PlayStation right now and you're like, make me a Nintendo DS, the original one that came out in '83. Right. And they're like, well, we know how to do it, but we don't have any of the stuff to put it together.
That's a good
so
way
in a
to explain
manufacturing way, I can get that, but it does seem suspect. I hear what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, make me a '69 Chevelle.
yeah.
Good fucking luck. You know what I mean? Like,
settle down, Ricky Bobby.
Out there with his hammer and Bondo.
that ain't happening. Chevy can't do it anymore. You know, so
All right, that's fair. All right. Fucking derailed that conversation.
No, you're good.
JB Sledge.
Yeah, just talking about ore and yeah, like people going to it. I feel it was much more justified during that time period than maybe recent ones or anyone post World War II.
It is wild to me, like the tactics and the acceptable sort of losses that were considered like, yeah, we're just gonna take an entire Marine division and put them online and walk forward.
Yeah,
and we'll kill 5,000 of our own men, and you know what? That's just what it takes to get an island. Like
well,
that was the thinking that was coming from the highest level back then. That's fucking wild to me.
Me as a
you went to war college to come up with that.
Yeah,
that's the best, like our best military minds could come up with.
Well, you got to look like the later part of World War II fighting the Japanese was us getting closer to Japan's home island. Right. So throughout that, like in the Philippines, they had airports and they had Guam and they had places like that. But as we got closer to their homelands, like Iwo, like Okinawa, these places and stuff, we thought they were airport bases. Like the whole Pacific. I mean, this is just one part of it is the island hopping campaign. But if you look at the other part, which is the bombing campaigns, the aerials of General Thomas LeMay, I think is who ran all the bombing campaigns of the Pacific. I mean, you look at what we did bombing German factories. It was nothing, man. Like, we killed more people in a night firebombing the island of Japan than the actual nuclear bomb. Yeah. Just so, I mean, and these things don't really get brought up in a lot. And everyone's like, oh, Germany was a hard part.
We committed a few war crimes like firebombing Dresden and Tokyo.
Tokyo, there was tornadoes of flames because we changed the heat. Like the atmosphere, it had a
thermal vortex or whatever the city changed.
Yeah, so just to me, the whole fighting the Japanese was so much more intense, whether it was on the islands or in the air. And so you said like that was the thinking back then. But yeah, that was it. It's like we need these islands to refuel our planes or to support troops to keep going and fighting to homeland Japan and taking
I get
it
the
over.
part where they wanted to take the island or deny the Japanese the airfield, and maybe I'm kind of spoiled from like the special operations model of just the coordinated raid, but it seems like they could have come up with better tactics than just putting everybody online and marching up the ridgeline.
Yeah.
So.
What they thought was going to be a 3-day campaign. They told them in the very beginning.
Yeah, well, they also talk about how it's not necessarily Peleliu, the island, wasn't overly strategically necessary.
In hindsight, it may have been completely unnecessary.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kicking the nuts. You don't want to think about.
Oh, yeah. Obviously the war was necessary, but I hear you and Greg as like, I've never been a big like military book or movie really for that matter. I'll watch it and I'll listen to it and stuff, but being that I didn't serve, like it's hard for me to read a book like this and really get into it because it's almost like
too much K Company, 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines.
No. Okay. It's more of like fuck, I wish I would have.
Because FOMO.
Yeah. It's not even FOMO. Like I just feel like almost like an imposter. Like, the time when I could have gone and served, I chose not to, or like just didn't end up going. I had a dog, like I told you guys when I got out of high school with the cancer stuff. They were like, "Oh, you don't have to do. You can't.
You're probably disqualified." Yeah.
So, and I was just like, "Oh well, fucking, that not worried about that now." And but not to say I would have done it either way. Yeah. So that to me is kind of one of those hard things because I look at buddies that served. I look at you, other guys that served, and for me, like even just reading books like this is kind of like, man, I feel shitty having staying on the sideline. So I don't feel like I have a spot at the table to really fucking, But I also I don't like look at it like, oh, you pieces of shit. I couldn't believe you did that. It's like, no, I thank you for it, and the service. But so when I read a book like this, it's kind of like, well, it's crazy what people did. Yeah. And I feel like I could have been in this kind of a mix and never did. Obviously not in 2008, 2009 when I would have been able to do it. But
right. Yeah. No, had we been born of that era, then we would have been somewhere in the Army or the Marine Corps or the Navy or some sort of service, right? Because almost every able-bodied man was.
Yeah, at that point. And then, or there was the draft thing, which is hilarious. The little bits of like honesty in this book where the guys are kind of like talking shit to each other.
Yeah, that's the best.
And like the enlisted guys versus the ones who were
drafted.
What they call it, a voluntary.
Oh, volunteers versus draftees.
Yeah. But what they called the there was a thing they said in there about like the guys that got drafted were basically like,
oh, I can't. I know exactly what you're talking about.
And it was just a little fucking bullshit. Yeah. They would talk back and forth, and they're like, "Oh, well, you got what you wanted. You fucking signed up.
Signed up for this, yeah.
Like I imagine the amount of shit talking was at an all-time high on Peleliu.
Well, and I want to back up because you mentioned like that sort of FOMO of not having served in the military, and I think a lot of guys our age feel that way. And so even my oldest son, he's 11, and he's talking to me about, he's like, man, I just feel like I don't do enough tough. Like he's like, I can't play football because he has a condition where his blood doesn't clot as easily. So impact sports are out. Mm-hmm. So he's like, I can't play football or hockey, so I can't play a tough guy sport. And so he kind of has that FOMO of not being like a tough guy. And one of the things I've really realized the last 2 years here, 2.5 years training at Electric North, is that there's a lot of ways to develop a warrior spirit. And think of all the warrior cultures that never served in a Western style military. So everybody who thinks that they're somehow missing out on that like warrior experience because they didn't enlist in the Army for 4 years, I don't think that's accurate at all. There's a lot of ways to find and pursue that just through martial arts, especially like the ones where you can go hard. I guess you can go hard in any of them, but if you're, going kickboxing, you can only spar so hard so often. Where jiu-jitsu, judo, wrestling, that's 100% effort, and so you can really let it all out on the mat, and you might get beat up or you might win, but it's that struggle and loss and struggle win, struggle loss that develops that warrior spirit. So I don't think people. I know everybody's still going to wish they had some of that experience, but it's not the only way to develop that warrior spirit.
I've thought about that same thing too. Like, man, maybe I could have been more. I could have been better serve or something like that. But then
most people who get out of the Army are bitter alcoholics.
Yeah,
so it's like be all you can be.
So it's like I do
think
know
you're doing pretty good. Goes
you nailed it there. Where it's like a lot of people there are like, this is a joke and stuff like that. But I know a lot of people where I've seen their lives turn around, and it was a tipping point where they could decide to go down one path or another. And so military's been good. But then also, like, look at this book. These guys weren't going there because they wanted to kill Japanese. Like, they weren't like, I'm blood hungry, bloodlust. Like, I'm doing this because my country's at war, and I'm doing it to protect my family. Well, in a way, it's based off of love. It's like, I love you guys. I want to protect you. I love my wife. I want to protect her.
That's a great point.
And so all of them doing this is kind of just based off of, and that's why it's you could have done more. You say that stuff, but it's like, no, these were all just normal people like that, us that love their people around them and wanted to take care of them. And then you look at the stats of like K Company and 1st Marines, it was like 65, almost 70% casualty.
I think he says at the end of the book, of the original 240 that hit Peleliu, by the time they were done with Okinawa, there was 26 left.
Yeah.
Right? And it's like, so those guys aren't out there for bloodlust and stuff like that, and they didn't ask to be put in a situation. They just went there thinking they're protecting their country and the ones that they love and defending what they think is right. And so to me, it's just like, they didn't ask for it. No one asked for it. They're just doing a job. These guys, unfortunately, got stuck in what I think he quoted it the best, saying a bottle with 2 scorpions trapped in it. Yeah. And that's what this fight ended up being. No one asked for it. It's just how life plays out. It's one of those things.
Yeah. One was going to be destroyed and the other was almost going to be destroyed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and looking at the pictures in the book, like, I'm glad I ended up getting the book as well. It's crazy, like, thinking that guy just
I know, he just looks like a normal, 22-year-old,
white belt kid, you know, but he's a fucking savage that just went through hell, Yeah,
I was also, the descriptions of the mud on Okinawa, those ones really like hit home, like, because I was an infantryman, but never in like heavy, like extended. I think Okinawa, they said, was 82 days of solid combat. Like to fight a campaign like that would be so exhausting. And I can remember just 3-day patrols in the Hindu Kush that were. I can't imagine just being in sustained contact for 82 days in the mud with no chance to take your boots off, just sort of slowly degrading. It's like it's like decay while you're still alive almost.
Oh yeah, well, like just what he was talking about when he's walking through, and he can't take his boots off, and he felt like it was all squishy and slimy and all that. I was like, man, I fucking freak out after 24 hours hunting without taking my boots off. Like, and I'm like, God damn, these socks are rough. Yeah. Could you imagine what did he say? It was like 3 weeks or something. He couldn't take his boots off for or something like that.
And then when he did, all his skin just came off with the socks.
Just kind of sloughing off. And it was like, like some tough motherfuckers.
But also by necessity, because then
you were forced to. There's no other option.
Ranger school, that is what Ranger school tries to replicate in the best way it can. Is it's 60 days of continuous, you're up on your feet, moving with a rucksack, all your equipment on to hit that day's objective, then into a night defensive perimeter where only half the patrol sleeps, then up and moving again. So you're always kind of on the go, carrying all your heavy shit. But they obviously can't replicate the stress of like the mortar attacks or the artillery or whatever. So they use like starvation and sleep deprivation to get you as stressed out as possible, and is just physically fucking like emaciated. Like I lost 25 pounds, and at the time I was probably 170 when I went there. So I came out of there weighing like 158 pounds, just skin and bone.
Yeah.
And that's just training. That's not even, I can't even imagine under these conditions.
Well, I couldn't imagine, like you guys are saying, like it's just the battlefield in these battles particularly were filth. If you look at Okinawa, it was bigger, but if you look at Peleliu, I think the map said it was what?
It was 5 square miles.
Yeah.
5 square miles is where, what was it, 3,000 plus Marines died and 10,000 Japanese.
10,000, yeah.
So that's, I mean,
right?
You know, spread that over 5 miles.
Figure out the per square foot.
Yeah.
That's insane.
And so it's like not only are you in the filth of it, but like that size and everything gets condensed down. It's like you have spent fuel drums, water drums, ammo crates, food crates, ration crates, old food debris. Now you have that many soldiers constantly shitting and pissing in the island. Then you have dead bodies getting killed. And if they're American, eventually they'll get taken off. But Japanese are just going to decompose right there.
Yeah, no water for nothing.
Yeah,
you know?
so it's like you have all this stuff going on. You're extremely fatigued, fighting all the time. Your senses are just shot, you know? And then it's like...
Can you imagine that level of adrenal fatigue?
Oh,
That's just a wreck.
Well, this Peleliu is where that term came from, the 1,000-yard stare. I'm pretty
right?
sure is that specific. I mean, it was shell shock and all these things, but that famous painting of a soldier with his eyes just bloodshot red and blown, that's Peleliu.
Okay.
And so, yeah, it's like to be in that condition, and like you said, just from training and you lost weight. Okay, so imagine you go through all that, and it's like, try and eat. Try and have a can of peaches. Try and eat anything. Right? You're just in the filthiest of filth. Just basic life was a hard thing to do. Then you have to follow orders, be aggressive, try and move, physical. Yeah, to me, it's
to get up and just slog on day after day after day after day, and that is like that's the one true, unknown time, unknown distance.
Yeah.
Event, because you have no idea. Like we could be fighting here for months, or maybe we'll roll right through them tonight.
Yeah.
And you have no way of knowing. So you just have to keep slogging and slogging and slogging, and it is such a mind fuck.
Yeah. Yeah. And it once again, I mean, the only reason you're slogging is because your opponent isn't giving you any opportunities. I think that when you see, like, if you look at other Pacific battles like Guadalcanal and stuff, and earlier battles in World War II with the Japanese, it's more of where they would do night raids, bonsais, stuff like that. They would drop their boats in and try and counter you with flanking. But once they hit Peleliu, I felt that the tactics of World War II Japanese really changed, where they focused on tunneling and digging in and making it so you could blow up a tunnel, but that tunnel had 5 other entrances to it where they could poke in, poke out, and they fortified themselves. Mm-hmm. And that level of combat, I mean, that's Afghanistan caves. That's Vietnamese.
Except the Japanese, it was engineered defense in depth, which means that each successive line of defenses supports the one in front of it.
Yeah, so they all tied.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Hitler's defenses were similarly, and they're like
he was too methed out, and he never ate a steak. The stupid vegan.
I think the German defense. Shit. I think the German defenses were equally well designed, but like. Yeah, the Japanese had like the perfect terrain for it with these sort of craggy
coral caves.
Ridges.
Yeah, and that coral to me is another thing.
Plus the Japanese were they had the ultimate weapon on their side, which is we're not surrendering. Like you have to kill us to the last man. Which the Wehrmacht would surrender when they realized they were beaten. But the Japanese were like a tiger. You've got backed into a corner.
Yeah.
And that's like, you got, now we're fighting.
Yeah.
To the end.
That's something I think about a lot too, is like the foe you're fighting. Like the Nazis were one thing, but like you said, no Japanese is going to surrender. I mean, I think part of the reason we did drop the A-bomb on Japan is because we thought we were going to have to invade their homeland and kill every man, woman, and child. It would have been a genocide of the entire place, so we had to send a strong signal. And to create a type of person or a community like that, like, how do you get there? Like, how do you invent?
The Japanese Empire is fascinating.
Yeah.
And how they believed that the emperor was, the direct descendant of God, and that they were the chosen. Like, go figure, most religions believe they are the chosen people, and the Japanese were no different. So they thought they were a special people and destined to rule.
Yeah. Exactly. Though, you think it's strong enough, and
unbelievable.
If you think about it, don't think of them as enemies, but say go to like the 1920s and just admire their society.
Yeah,
it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one place. I'm not a big traveler, but that's one place I would love to go is Japan.
Same.
And go check it out and actually see, like, also, like, before I forget that, thank God you Google Earth, right? Like I went and took a tour of Peleliu.
Jordan's like, holy fuck, this is in the Pacific Ocean. Did you guys know that?
Did you guys understand?
I thought it was off of Jersey.
Yeah, this is just above Australia. Just so you guys know, just a little north of Australia here that this book took place. No, but that's like, looking at it, it's like it's a small island that all these people fucking went and did it. But when you go and look on Google Earth and look through like the images and shit, you can still see fucking planes all fucked up in the jungle and shit's still out there. Like, and then there's like, little memorials and all that everywhere and graves. And then there's a museum there that has like some artifacts that they found and like dug up and like all this other shit from the fucking wars, and it's like old guns. And then the craziest thing that really kind of stood out to me was a canteen with fucking bullet holes in it. And it was just like, just like the one, like you got a fucking canteen, and like even that's getting fucking blown to bits.
Yeah.
Like everything you had, like that kind of war is just so fucking, any war really, I imagine, I've never been, but that it's so fucking intense.
Well, I think that there's different types. I mean, if you look at like World War I trench warfare and compare it to like our first invasion of Iraq, I mean, those are technically were both at, well, I guess one wasn't an act of Congress, and the other one was. But I mean, technically we're both at war here in this, just for sake. And but the tactics are so completely different in what you're doing there.
Yeah, and going back to my criticism of tactics, I think that there are historians who would agree that World War I and World War II are kind of the same conflict.
Yeah, it's just a carryover, is an extension.
Exactly. Yeah, and it was those two wars, or extended conflict, however you want to look at it, was the first time that the industrial age met like cavalry tactics. So it was like old school military minds were still thinking about getting their horses online all abreast and then charging into the enemy ranks, whereas the Industrial Revolution had happened, and now we had like field artillery that wasn't a smooth bore cannon drawn by a horse. It was a self-propelled howitzer, or it was on a trailer, and 60 millimeter mortars that 3 troops could carry. And so you're raining down all this heavy ordnance on old school formations, and that's what led to so much like just wholesale slaughter. And then that started to evolve through Korea. Even in Vietnam, they were still teaching infantrymen to just sort of stand up on line and walk abreast of each other forward toward the enemy, which is
fucking wild.
It's fucking insane.
That is absolutely bullshit. And I thought, dude, I thought we fucking learned in the fucking 1700s.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, spoiler alert, one of the next books we're doing is War on the Run.
Yeah.
And in that they talk about the tactics that they had.
Those guys had like badass tactics.
I was just gonna say exactly that. I'm 3 chapters in, and I'm starting.
Oh, you guys already started it?
Yeah.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
I'm gonna start reading it again. Awesome.
Yeah. So, but that is, but they're coming off of, we all stand in line and we fucking march towards each other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then they get here and they're like, what the fuck? Like,
well, what is that? That's got to be from old, like, just basic, like, centurion Romans. Like, you have your formation of archers and liners and
the overlapping shields protecting each other.
And then cavalry rides.
And then cavalry could break the phalanx, I think, with the big horses. And then cannons were cannons and musketry are what destroyed the cavalry.
Yeah.
But it was like offensive tactics never evolved past horse cavalry.
Yeah.
Just everybody get online and start to assault forward. And then I guess in World War II in Europe, they did start to figure out the coordination of infantry and tanks and air cover, like the invention of the shortwave radio so that you could have the handset and be coordinating with aircraft and with tanks to support each other. But it was still just everybody online move forward.
Well, that's a big thing in this book was they always said it was like a dog with its fleas, a tank and its riflemen, and that using radios and calling in aerial strikes and planes and just being able to communicate was key. Just, those ridges were horrible.
The other thing that like crossed my mind as I was reading it is it's like the military used then and still does today it's like an industrial model of leadership where you have management and labor. Like I work for a construction contractor on the labor side, and you have the management side, which is all the sort of the white collar, like accounting, engineering, design, project engineers, project managers, whatnot. And then you have us, the electricians, who are on the labor side. And the military is kind of the same way, where you have enlisted and officers. And it strikes me today in the civilian workforce, and I was thinking about it reading the book, like how disconnected the officers, even in the CP out in the field with the troops, are from the actual front line, and just completely ununderstanding of what their troops are going through just because they're huddled 100 yards back under a poncho.
Yeah.
And we run across, like, dude, we see it all the time at work. It's there's got to be, or I shouldn't say there's got to be a better way. I think the military really needs to get back to, if you want to be an officer, you have to be enlisted first. And I don't think a college education qualifies you to lead troops in combat.
Fuck no, it doesn't.
Yeah, it's the dumbest fucking idea ever. You should have to have at least 4 years enlisted experience before you can even apply to be an officer. But that struck me while I was reading the book. Just he's got a couple officers he likes, and that he was like, there was the one that when he died, like the whole company kind of like
mourned it.
Haldane.
Exactly. Yes.
Ack. Yeah.
Yep. And then there was the other one that he's like, everybody just kind of shakes their head at him and what is this guy doing here?
The first guy that gets hit, I'm going to pull out my Colt 45 sidearm and charge the line, he would always say. Yeah. Watch me go red.
Fuck. And then it like at the end of the book, I was like, son of a bitch, this is the military, where it's like they finish the assault across the island. They're dog ass tired, and they're like, all right, turn around, go pick up the brass.
Yeah.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Yeah.
Like, dude, I would have revolted.
Yeah. Well, that's like the whole point of I was gonna bring that up too, because that's so fucked. You know, you just get done fighting one of the worst battles, the U.S. has ever seen, and go pick that up, or the port where they're talking about, okay, we got done, we're kind of chilling. We're going to go take our lunch, and we're going to go walk over, and we found this cool, nice, mellow ravine. And then they were like, some officer walks up to them, and it's like, all right, boys, move out. And they were like, oh, shit, are we marching again? And they were like, no, you just can't be back here. This is too nice for you, kind of thing. And then they look over, and there's some officers getting ready to have their lunch, and they're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. Like,
so
you can't be here with the higher class folks.
But I mean, that's a good point. You pointed out about work, because that's how it feels a lot of the time. Dude. It's like you look over and it's like, oh, the whole office staff's going out to lunch. It looks like, huh? All right, well, I guess I'm gonna wash my hands in this fucking honey bucket real quick and go eat. And
the place where I work, like the customer we serve, I'm not allowed to go to the cafeteria. I'm not allowed to buy coffee at the Starbucks stand. What else am I? Not allowed to ride the shuttle bus.
Not allowed to talk
Yeah.
to them.
Yeah. Because
You peasant, you shut your mouth when you're working.
Exactly. Yeah. Holy crap.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's wild, but it's funny because that's
But the reason why is because I'm an electrician.
Yeah.
you're a construction worker.
Not allowed to use
The
that's what
job
it is.
site.
We're not allowed to use the bathrooms. We have to use porta potties on the loading dock.
Yeah.
The job site, the job site I'm on, they wanted us to walk around the job site until so instead of through the campus that I'm on, they wanted us to walk around, and then back into the job site.
We don't want you, so you're never on their property.
So we don't want to see you guys. We don't want to see you guys.
Yeah.
And it was like, what the fuck? So yeah, I mean I guess it, the
We're getting off topic.
Yeah, sorry.
But,
Yeah,
no,
but
no, it's
you
all
are,
good.
but you aren't, because that's the nature of the beast. Like, there has to be different levels and tiers of people. Like, you read a few war books, and especially this one, I find themselves, every time they'd go back in and they felt like it was fruitless. What they were doing didn't matter, and they would just get killed, or their friends would. They constantly call it the meat grinder. And that's what it was. It was just chewing up these people and spitting them out, and they would request more people, and they would come in, and it